Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here, QIT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. There's my screen. Welcome to the show. It's Monday, and hope everybody had a good weekend. My weekend consisted of, basically relaxation. That's what I tried to do this weekend. Actually, I thought about almost streaming Remnant from the Ashes. I don't know if you heard of that. This is a game that's actually really good. Um, Never heard of it before. Started playing it. It's kind of like Dark Souls if you like that, but it has guns, so it's kind of hard, but actually pretty fun. So I might stream that going forward. But anyway, we got a show full of politics, so this will be fun. So now, what we're going to talk about today is we have Donald Trump versus hurricanes. You never believe, actually, you probably will, what he said, uh, his plan, actually, to try to combat hurricanes. It's amazing. Then we've got some G7 nonsense. So that's fun. Trump officials getting very, very angry for no reason. And we'll talk about that. Then we've got Lindsey Graham telling people to suck it up. We've got to accept the pain when it comes to Donald Trump's trade war. That's going to go over incredibly well. Then we have Steve King. Good news. Steve King is not doing so well. So we got the details on that, which could be an amazing win for progressives in Iowa. So that's awesome. And then finally, we have the Electoral College, a disastrous ruling for democracy. So we have that fun stuff, like I said before. Before I get into it, of course, there's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about, including what's going to happen this week. So this week is going to be a little bit of a strange week. We're actually not going to have a show both Thursday and Friday. The reason for that is I will be traveling on Friday to New Jersey. So I will be taking part on the Minds event, the Minds IRL event, working with Mythicist Milwaukee. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be on a panel about corporate involvement in activism. So whether or not it should be, it's going to apparently be a very open-ended discussion. I'll be with Graham Elwood and a couple of others on this panel. Again, should be very interesting. If you want to actually go and watch that discussion, there's a way that you can do that. There's actually a link in the description for tickets. So if you want to watch me make a fool of myself in front of a bunch of people, that'll be great. you can buy a ticket because I get like super nervous because I don't do like public speaking. So that's going to be really interesting / fun. No, it's going to be a really good discussion. Believe me. So I think I'm going to go and I'm going to learn some things, and I'm going to maybe have people learn a bit from me. So it's going to be fun seeing perspectives here on that, whether or not they should be involved in activism or if they even can be by nature of being a corporation. So I think it's going to be really fun. And then, by the way, if you want to go, like I said, there's a link in the description, and if you use my name, Jeff, as the promo code, that actually helps the show as well. So I get a decent split from the revenue that goes in to help the show and help me do more of these events. So that's awesome. So yeah, I don't know if there's any tickets left. Just have to click on the link and see. So should be, again, a lot of fun, and I'll be around, of course, that event if you want to talk, etc. BS, whatever. That should be, again, a lot of fun. So we'll see you hopefully there. All right. Now, before I get into the stories, I gotta talk about this poll, right? So wait for it. Here comes Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders from behind with a chair taking out Joe Biden. Look at that. We have a national Monmouth poll. This is a national poll. It's not a local poll from some of the battleground states, but This is just a new national poll. Bernie Sanders, now the front runner. Again, this is one poll, but he is now the front runner in the Democratic primary. He is at 20%. Uh, so he's gained about 6 since the last Monmouth poll. And then you have Elizabeth Warren right behind at +5. So she's gained 5 points in the polls. And then you have Joe Biden, 19%. Now he has taken a 13-point hit. Down goes Biden. Down goes Biden. Look, Biden, he's still the number 3. Let's not be let's not be let's be super realistic about this, right? So he's down at 3rd. So you have a race now where you have the two progressives. Bernie Sanders, arguably, in my opinion, more progressive than Elizabeth Warren, but Elizabeth Warren still progressive on a lot of issues. And I know some of you might fight with me on that, but you look at them and you look at Warren compared to the rest of the field. Warren is more progressive than the rest of the Democrats, but not more progressive than Bernie Sanders. So you have the two more progressive senators way ahead of the rest of the field. And now, because look, Harris is at 8%, Cory Booker's at 4%, Buttigieg at 4%, Yang at 3%. Yeah, look at Yang. Oh, Yang's gaining some points here. Julian Castro at 2%. Beto O'Rourke, he's actually lost a point. He's now at 2%. Down goes Beto. Down goes Beto. He's not good. He Beto run against Ted Cruz again. That's what he actually needs to do. But man, look at that. The rest of the field, not even double digits. Sanders, Warren, and Biden, the top 3. Damn. Progressives are indeed ascendant. So again, one poll, I grant you that. But hopefully this is the first of many, and that we see Biden continue to fall. Again, -13 for Biden. That is a huge, huge drop. It seems like, and this is funny, because we've seen this before. It seems like the more that people hear Biden talk, the more they're like, oof, yeah, don't like that. Not in favor. Hey, let's go with people who actually have good plans, i.e. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. Again, Elizabeth Warren has some pretty good plans. Bernie Sanders continues to outdo her on the progressiveness of those plans. So, for example, Elizabeth Warren says, let's forgive about $50,000 worth of student loan debt, with some conditions, and that's good and all. But Bernie Sanders says, nah, let's just cancel the whole thing. Cancel it all. All $1.6 trillion. Yes. Medicare for all. Let's do Medicare for all. And to be fair, Elizabeth Warren is more in favor of Medicare for all too, even though I believe in not 100%. So let's be fair. She's in favor of Medicare for all, but is open a little bit to other options. Again, I don't know if I'm 100% right on that. I have to go and double check, but I think that's what I've heard. Nonetheless, Warren, great plans. Bernie Sanders, even better plans. So, all right. Anyway, that's an amazing poll. I love it. Let's see more. I hope it continues to hold out, and that Bernie Sanders continues to stay in the lead. All right. Anyway, so let's go to the idiocy that is Donald Trump. Yay. Fun times. All right. It appears that President Trump might finally be getting serious about combating the effects of climate change. Not just kidding. He wants to nuke hurricanes. I'm not kidding. According to a report in Axios, during a hurricane briefing at the White House, Trump had an idea. Now, again, stay with me here. right? So, and it's probably what he told his aides. He says, "Oh, I got it. I got it. Why don't we just nuke them?" Wait, wait. Nuke them, as in the hurricanes. He's gonna nuke. He wants to nuke the hurricanes. He said they start forming up the coast of Africa. As they're moving across the Atlantic, we drop a bomb inside the eye of the hurricane, and it disrupts it. Why can't we do that? Now that's according to a source that was there, that was paraphrasing Donald Trump's remarks. But if we just nuke the hurricanes? Now it turns out that idea has actually been around since like the 60s, where somebody's like, I know. And I forget who came up with it and who echoed it. But their idea was have a submarine, go under a hurricane, and launch a missile into it. Yeah, I know. Look, I don't think I should have to explain why that's a bad idea. But it's a bad idea, and I'm going to have to explain it. So obviously, there's a lot of reasons why we can't do that. For one, it actually won't disrupt a hurricane. You would need a lot of explosive force to disrupt a hurricane. In fact, some of the more powerful hurricanes actually have the equivalent energy of a nuclear explosion every 20 minutes. So you would need a lot of ordnance to actually be able to disrupt a hurricane. So we can't do that, right? Number two, and this is even more important here and consequential, there's this little thing called nuclear fallout. You know, that whole radiation thing? Yeah. So if you bomb, and by the way, this is just for one hurricane, right? Now imagine every hurricane during hurricane season gets bombed out with these nuclear weapons. What's going to happen? You're going to have the entire ocean that is basically irradiated. Not a good thing. Not a good. And not only this, but imagine this, right? Radioactive hurricanes. Terrible. Terrible. Look, hurricanes in themselves are bad enough. You add radioactivity, it's worse than Sharknado. Way worse. Okay, so my God, dumb person, stupid person. And not he's not just dumb, by the way. He is dangerously idiotic. He is weapons grade stupid. I mean, wow. No, okay, look, now I've got a hilarious quote here from one of the Trump defenders. And you're going to love this, right? But before that, this is not the first time he's brought up this idea. So he's been floating this for a while, right? And to be fair, this idea has been floating around since the 1960s. And every time actual scientists come out and say, you know what, that's probably a bad idea. We should not do that. Well, now, the second time, I think, second conversation they had about this was from a 2017 NSC memo. Now, Trump asked whether the administration should not just nuke, right? To be fair, but just bomb the hurricanes. So we have a problem with hurricanes hitting the coast. Why don't we just bomb them? Idiot. Oh, hey, we have a problem with nature. Let's just do what we always do with every problem and just launch missiles at it. Let's bomb it. Like this is basically this administration has become a parody of itself and a parody of the government. Again, us on the left always say like, man, it seems like all of our problems, all of our leaders like to solve our problems with bombing things. In this case, it's become literal. What the Trump administration said, let's just nuke it / bomb it. And it just makes me think of, we have a problem in Afghanistan. Let's launch the mother of all bombs at it. And that's what they literally did. Didn't solve the problem in Afghanistan, by the way. God. Now, let me give you that Trump statement, or that statement from a Trump official. So I'm going to quote the Hill here. And he said, quote, this is the official. He said his goal, Trump's goal, is to keep a catastrophic hurricane from hitting the mainland. That's not a bad goal. Well, of course, right? And he said his objective is not bad. Okay, well, look, the objective is absolutely fine, right? You want to prevent hurricanes. Well, look, in this case, we can't. But hey, you know what we can do? We can prevent them from even getting stronger. and more frequent. If we actually take on climate change, which is a factor that is known to have made storms, and you can't just attribute it to one single storm, of course, but it makes the conditions more ripe for stronger hurricanes. And so we could actually do something about that and maybe lessen the impact. And we could, of course, invest in trying to make more hurricane resistant buildings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's nothing that the Donald Trump administration is even trying to do. As you've seen, his solution is bomb them. But anyway, so now this official added this quote, what people near the president do is they say, quote, I love a president who asks questions like that, who's willing to ask the tough questions. Hey man, look, at least he wants to stop hurricanes by making it worse, but at least he gets credit for asking the hard questions. You know why it's a hard question? Because no one's stupid enough to ask it. But more. He says, quote, it takes strong people to respond to him in the right way when stuff like this comes up. I.e., it takes somebody who actually has the balls to defy the child in chief, who will throw a temper tantrum if you even mention that the idea that he comes up with is incredibly stupid. But there's more. He said, for me, alarm bells weren't going off when I heard about it. But I did think someone is going to use this to feed into the president is crazy narrative. Well, yeah. I mean, because the president is crazy, or at least he's stupid. I mean, again, wow, I love a president who asks the dumbest questions imaginable. Says no one ever. Well, I guess except for this guy or Trump defenders, right? But no one credible. But now let me give you the reaction in the room, which is probably the best part of the story. The briefer, according to Axios, was, quote, knocked back on his heels, according to the source. It was so quiet, and this is direct quote, you could hear a gnat fart in the meeting. People were astonished. I don't know if astonished was the right word. Gobsmacked, maybe. Dumbfounded, perhaps. Astonished is being kind, right? And they said that after the meeting had ended, we thought, what the F? What do we do with this? You run. Far, far away. Run. And yet, I love how the very same official that I quoted earlier said, oh, no, alarm bells. No, don't have any of those. Really? Unbelievable horse crap. Everybody there is like, what do we do with this idiot, with this dumb man baby that's running this country? Like, this cannot be a serious idea. No, it's a serious idea. And again, I love how the mention of this is going to feed into the president's crazy narrative. Yeah. Let me just do a thought experiment here for a second. Imagine if President Obama said the same thing. Let's nuke the hurricanes. I guarantee you, most of the people on the left would be like, that dude's crazy, dangerous, 25th Amendment. Now his entire cabinet would be like, what are you doing? What are you saying? That's it. 25th Amendment immediately. We got to get this dangerous idiot out of office. Again, that would happen if someone like Obama had said this, right? But on the right wing, they're like, oh yeah, nuke the hurricanes. Oh yeah, great, good idea. Yep. The bold solutions, bold questions. When in private, they're like, oh man, we're effed. This is so dumb. And now finally, no ridiculous Trump story would be complete without a 100% denial from the president. He said on Twitter, the story by Axios that President Trump wanted to blow up large hurricanes with nuclear weapons prior to reaching shore is ridiculous. And again, I'm laughing because this could have been written by The Onion. They're again, this is something that Jon Stewart should have been coming up with. The satire, but the satire is now reality. We are living in the upside down. That's what's going on here. But he said, I never said this, just more fake news. No, he totally said it. The stronger the denial, the more accurate it is, by the way. And look, we're talking about a person who looked right at the sun during a solar eclipse. You're not supposed to do that. Or and someone who thinks that climate change is the work of the Chinese. That doesn't exist. It's just a Chinese hoax to hurt American businesses, to hurt American manufacturing. He's also remarked that vaccines cause autism and that windmills cause cancer. Yeah, very stable. And oh, and this is my favorite, right? That everyone is born with an internal battery, and that when you exercise, that depletes your internal battery, making you die sooner. These are actual things the president of the United States believes. Now, a very stable genius, he is not. Man, complete and utter insanity. All right, let's go to G7. So President Trump is in the midst of basically wrapping up a visit to France for the G7 conference. Now, this mostly happened over the weekend, and what ended up happening is not a lot of agreement with the other six nations involved. In fact, Trump had told reporters, though, despite this, that, quote, the meeting, it's been really good. I will tell you, we have had great unity. Wonderful, great unity. Now, however, reports from the ground, especially from Trump officials, report the opposite, especially in regards to the host. This would be the French president, Emmanuel Macron. So now senior aides in Trump's entourage have actually accused the G7 host and French president of seeking to embarrass his U.S. counterpart by making the summit focus on what he calls niche issues. Niche issues. Okay, so what kind of niche issues? Well, senior administration officials quoted by the New York Times, among others, complained the summit had moved from core issues such as global economics and trade to such minor niche issues as climate change, gender equality, and African development. Mm. Because gender equality, as well as, I don't know, the future habitability of our planet, are just niche. Such tiny little niche issues, right? Now, the officials claimed that the topics were chosen to appeal to supporters of Emmanuel Macron and to embarrass Donald Trump. He said, one official told White House reporter Gabby Orr that it, quote, it's our view that with France trying to drive these other issues outside the global economics, national security, and trade, they're trying to fracture the G7, of which 6 of the 7 countries in the G7 disagree. They're like, no, we actually are unified on this, that America is being stupid. And by America, I just generally mean President Trump and his officials. Every other country agrees that President Trump is not right. Let's say that, be diplomatic here. When it comes to climate change, again, President Trump pulled out of the international agreement, the International Climate Change Agreement, known as the Paris Agreement. Now, look, the Paris Agreement basically set minimum standards, non-enforceable, right? But saying, hey, look, basically these countries that signed on, you will at least try to reduce your emissions and do things that are actually good for the environment to combat climate change. And again, non-binding, kind of a weak resolution in my view, but it was something. But it was too much for Donald Trump, and he took it and, like the Iran deal, he ripped it up. He's like, no, we're not going to do anything about climate change. In fact, I'm going to prop up coal. I'm going to have these companies drill for more oil. We're going to try and drill in the Arctic. We're going to, and that's of course probably one reason why Trump wanted to buy Greenland, because somebody's like, there's a lot of oil up there. Why don't you go get it? And he's like, oh, yeah. Let's get the oil. Let's get the oil. Because unfortunately, that's what it's about in a lot of cases. Um, yeah. So he did a lot of stuff that is to the opposite of what we should be doing when it comes to climate change. So obviously, the world looks at that, at least the other members of the G7, and they're like, yeah, no. Niche issue? Don't think so. Besides, you have the Amazon that's currently on fire. You also have parts of Africa that are on fire. Speaking of African development, right? Large parts of Africa that are also on fire. The ice caps are melting. It was 90 degrees in the Arctic not too long ago. So there are some major problems. And these Trump officials are like, how dare Macron be so mean? They're trying to embarrass our president. But now, wait a minute. So if climate change wasn't a real issue, say, and so say President Trump is right and it's an invention by the Chinese, isn't being on the side against that not embarrassing? Why would you be embarrassed for holding that view if it were true? Oh, right. It's because it's completely not true. And these Trump supporters are like, or Trump officials are like, oh, crap. We know that our president's full of crap. How dare you try to highlight this to embarrass him? Or actually, in reality, embarrass us? Because the president feels no shame. He feels no embarrassment. He believes in these ridiculous things. He's, of course, deeply unintelligent and has no regard for reality, for truth and factual information. Everybody around him is embarrassed. And that's the problem. They don't want to be. They don't want to be. And so they have the audacity of wanting to control what these other nations and what literally the rest of the world sees as real problems. Now, there are some U.S. officials that went further, saying that French officials had been difficult to work with in the build-up to the summit, and that the original schedule had said little or nothing about trade and the global economy until the U.S. complained, a claim French officials deny. Now, at this point, I hate to say it, but I don't believe in the words of the United States government. Of course, I guess I didn't even really believe it that much under Obama. So I've been very cynical about the United States government for a very long time. So let's be honest about that, right? But even more so today than I was before, especially on this. Um, now here's the thing, right? So global trade and the global economy, are they important issues? Of course they are. But you know what is even more important? Climate change. Turns all of that. You can't have an economy without a stable climate. So yes, it's important, even if discussing it makes baby mad, and that's what it is. And by the way, the United States, we also look bad. This entire trip was an embarrassment, an absolute embarrassment. How can anybody abroad in other countries actually take the United States seriously? Not only is our government completely and utterly dysfunctional under Donald Trump, but there's also the realization that our politics is so broken right now that we ended up having this embarrassment elected into office in the first place. And just for a side note here, how embarrassed do you have to be Hillary Clinton? Yikes. Just yikes. And there, of course, is also the realization that there is some percentage of our population that is proud, still proud of electing Donald Trump. That also looks horrible. Horrible. So, look, it's going to take decades to undo the damage of just 4 years of Donald Trump. Not to mention the disaster that awaits us when we get if he gets reelected. So again, yikes. All right. So we're gonna take a break. We'll come back. Um, we have Lindsey Graham being ridiculous, and plenty more. So stay tuned. We'll be right back in a couple minutes around the nation. welcome back to the show. Around the nation right here, TWT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here. Okay, so what we have is we're going to go forward and we're going to talk Lindsey Graham. But before we do, please like and share the stream. Okay.
We just got to accept the pain that comes with standing up to China. How do you get China to change without creating some pain on them and us? I don't know.
So that was Senator Lindsey Graham telling American farmers hurt by Donald Trump's trade war with China to just, hey, suck it up, accept the pain. So, yeah, that happened. Now, so basically, let's accept the fact that through Donald Trump's blundering, the entire market for soybeans is gone. Basically. Now, look, that's not something that you just get back. These farmers actually spent decades building up these relationships. And now, because of the trade war, you have farmer income that's down, while you also have debt and bankruptcy that has gone up. Now, you also have farm equipment manufacturing plants that are closing down or having less business or laying people off because there's less people buying new stuff. Farmers aren't buying new tractors. They're not upgrading their old farm equipment. And because of all that, you also have a massive hit in trucking. Now, I talked about how the truckers were really mad because, and look, truckers vote overwhelmingly conservative. A lot of truckers voted for Donald Trump. And now, again, because of the trade war, because of the economy, because of what one trucker has described as the bloodbath, the trucking bloodbath, here you have truckers that are also losing their jobs and not buying new equipment. So it's a spiral. So you've got a massive hit in trucking and the economy as well. In fact, when trucking slows down to its level, and trucking has been in a recession since 2018, now you also have that basically being a red flag, right, towards a recession, that points towards a recession. And so you have that. Then you have the yield curve inversion. That's also happened. That's a big red flag that says we're about to enter a recession, and it's not going to be good because no recession is actually good. So now, Lindsey Graham, well, he's not buying any of this stuff, right? He just says, "Oh no, the trade war is fantastic. We're actually doing really good. And by the way, it's actually the Democrats' fault." Take a look.
Every Democrat and every Republican of note has said China cheats. The Democrats for years have been claiming that China should be stood up to. Now Trump is, and we just got to accept the pain that comes with standing up to China. How do you get China to change without creating some pain on them and us? I don't know.
How much pain should the people of South Carolina be prepared for?
Some. Consumer prices on commodities are going to go up. We're now at that part in the trade war where you feel price increases at Walmart. The president has backed off because he's worried about the Christmas shopping season. I tell you, Mr. President, listen, you got more bullets than they do. They sell us a lot more stuff than we sell them. And the goal is to get them to change their behavior. The Chinese government, the Chinese army, and the Chinese business community are one and the same. They're very mercantile. You don't have these disputes among democracies, but the Chinese Communist Party runs everything in China. Until they feel the pain, they're not going to stop.
Well, the bad thing is that they're not actually going to feel the pain from this trade war, as the tariffs are paid not by the Chinese, but by American businesses that import things from China. So, and they have the ability, of course, to manipulate their currency, and they've done so. So, there's that. But I love that part at the beginning. Well, it's the Democrats. They said to stand up to China, and then when Trump does it, okay, so let's just blame Democrats for Trump doing the thing that we falsely accuse Democrats of wanting to do, but also what we wanted to do because we have no idea what we're doing. Now, that makes a lot of sense, right? Basically, the gist of what he was saying. Look, Democrats have not been calling for trade wars. The only Democrat, by the way, that I've seen actually promoting tariffs, as most corporate Democrats are more of like, oh, no, let's have more free trade, guys. Look, President Obama, for example, wanted the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So that would have included a lot of the market in Asia as well. So, and not only that, but we've had permanent trade relations with China for quite some time under CAFTA. So, that's the situation right there, right? And that's been under Democrats as well as Republicans. Again, both of them are more your free trade, right? So now the one Democrat that I've heard against some of that, especially permanent trade, normal trade relations with China, is Bernie Sanders. Now, Bernie Sanders, he says, look, I do believe in tariffs, but you can't just go putting tariffs on willy nilly. No, you actually have to have a plan and you actually have to implement them in a smart way. So, do I believe that? I believe tariffs can be effective, but again, when you're smart, right? Um, that involves having to know what you're doing and also having a specific end goal in place, and basically using the tariffs as a way to start a trade process, right? Now, Donald Trump hasn't really been willing to do so, and neither is the Chinese, to be fair on that. It's just been a completely ham-handed endeavor at trying to get China to change their ways. I don't even know what Donald Trump's end goal is at this point. I just don't know. I don't know what he's trying to do. So it just doesn't make any sense at what he's doing. And besides, China is not an easy country to push around economically. It is one gigantic central economy. And it's not as if, the United States has a monopoly on growing soybeans or any of the other products that we do end up selling to China. But Lindsey Graham's right about one thing. We do buy a lot of things from China. So, but unfortunately, Donald Trump has so far failed to use any sort of leverage he has from that. So, and look, as far as the farmers in the Midwest, again, Russia and other countries have actually already stepped into the role of selling soybeans to China. So those markets are gone. Congratulations. But as far as feeling the pain, right? And that's what Lindsey Graham's overall message is. You just got to stick with it. You're going to feel a little bit of pain from this, trust me, but it'll be fine. Well, why don't you feel some of the pain, Lindsey Graham? Why is it that these representatives never end up feeling any of the negative effects from their own policies? Why is it? Well, it's because they're either exempt or they're incredibly wealthy. And by the way, there are congressmen that own farms, right? For example, Republican Senator Chuck Grassley. Chuck Grassley is hurt personally by this trade war. He owns a farm that grows both corn and soybeans. So his crop negatively affected. So how does he feel about the trade war? Well, Chuck Grassley not only thinks that it's perfectly fine, that we shouldn't let up on it, but he also, for the second time, also took Donald Trump's farm bailout money. Oh, so that's why. Again, not all farms qualify for this bailout money, but Chuck Grassley sure did. Oh, no, it's my small little family farm. Chuck Grassley is a multimillionaire. Not only does he get paid extravagantly for being in Congress, being a politician, doing speeches, all that stuff, and taking, of course, donations from giant corporations, but he also takes bailout money and basically government subsidies. You want to talk about welfare queen? Well, Chuck Grassley would fit the bill. He's going to be fine. None of these wealthy senators, including Lindsey Graham, are ever going to feel how the Midwest actually feels thanks to Donald Trump and his stupid trade war. So keep that in mind when you hear these hack politicians come out and talk about how, oh no, you're just going to have to accept the pain from this. Well, sorry, Lindsey, but if you're not there with us feeling that same pain, then you've got no right to speak. Okay. So let's go from Lindsey Graham to Steve King. Good news. Representative Steve King is almost broke. It appears that the Iowa Republican is having a bit of a hard time this election cycle, especially since his re-election campaign is underway. Yahoo News reports that Steve King has lost all support from his major donors and even his own colleagues in the Senate. So now, apparently, King has not received a single contribution this year from any political action committee associated with a sitting member of Congress. Not only that, but he has also lost all of his corporate donations. In fact, according to this article, corporate PACs and interest groups have completely shunned him. Through the first 6 months of the year, King received just 2 contributions from third-party political entities. Now, you're going to love this, right? This $2,000 in donations from PACs associated with 2 former members of Congress. Now, it's former Republican Representative Lamar Smith from Texas and Todd Akin. Now, if you didn't know, Todd Akin, he's a legitimate rape guy. Oh, so that makes sense. So Todd Akin's PAC says, oh, you're having a problem and you say crazy things about rape? And one of the crazy things that he said about that actually is, oh, if you go through your family trees, I mean, who, would you be here if there weren't so much rape? Wow. And so him and he's getting money, shockingly, from legitimate rape guy. I mean, if it's a legitimate rape, the body has a way of shutting that whole thing down, right? No, it doesn't. So now, what's funny is, now, I actually love it when candidates don't take corporate money, right? So I'm in favor of candidates that don't take special interest in corporate money. So I should actually be pretty happy about this, right? Well, again, I don't like Steve King, for one, and I'm completely honest about that. But what's funny about this, and sort of ironic, is that it's not that he's declining to take corporate money. Oh, no, he'd love to take this corporate money. Thing is that he's become so toxic that these corporations and special interests are like, Steve King, nah, dude, nope. And so it is kind of hilarious and ironic. Now, again, Steve King is one of those people that if corporations offer him money, he's like, yes. And for a long time, he had corporations and special interest groups that are more than willing to shovel money into his campaigns, no matter how racist he was. But because it's so open, it's so transparent now, and people are actually paying attention, well, now these, companies and PACs are like, no, can't do it. So now, again, the other good thing about this is that this could be our opening to take him down. Again, taking down one of the most racist white nationalist congressmen in Congress, in government. That'd be great. So right now, it's been explained that he has a, quote, catastrophic lack of resources. His campaign has a total of about $18,365. That is his campaign war chest. At least that was reported back in June. That is the least cash on hand he's ever reported after the first 6 months of a cycle. Now, another thing is he's got a primary opponent on the right, and he's got a progressive running at him from the left. So the progressive is J.D. Scholten, right? Now, J.D. Scholten is notable because he ran against Steve King last year in the deeply conservative part of Iowa and lost by just 3 points. Now J.D. Scholten, he's back. He doesn't take corporate money, and he's unabashedly, unapologetically progressive. So now he's got J.D. Scholten to take on. That's if he even makes it to the general election. Again, I mentioned he has a primary opponent, and that's State Senator Randy Feenstra. Now, Feenstra already has endorsements from influential right-wing Iowans, such as evangelical leader Bob Vanderplaats. At the end of July, Feenstra's campaign committee reported to having $337,314.30 cash on hand, compared to Steve King's roughly 18 grand. So if you're wondering where all the corporations went to, they went to Randy Feenstra. And by the way, let me give you the donors here. Donors to Feenstra that were King donors. So let me go to that. According to an analysis of Federal Election Commission records, King's top donors used to be the American Bankers Association, the National Association of Home Builders, AT&T, Crystal Sugars, and the Rain and Hail Insurance Society. All of them donated to King during the 2018 election cycle, but have not have actually declined to do so in this cycle. The ones that are funding his challenger are at least 6 industry PACs that have donated to King in the past, including those affiliated with shipping giant UPS and trade associations representing construction and agricultural firms. They have instead put their money in Feenstra. So me, I'm in favor of J.D. Scholten. Like I said, takes no corporate back money, is actually progressive. But that's just that's where I stand on this, right? But Scholten or not, Iowa, is this who you want to represent you? Steve King? I mean, somebody who says terrible racist things, like we can't repopulate our civilization with somebody else's babies. And not just to mention the ridiculous thing he's said about rape. No, he has a long history, and I've documented a lot of the racist, terrible things that he said on the show. And you can go back and you can watch those videos. And I encourage you to do so in case you want to know what Steve King is all about. But that's who he is. That's who he is. So now, again, it even gets worse for Steve King because, like I said, he's been abandoned not just by the donors, but by the Republican Party. Yahoo reports that contributions for Republican Party organs have also evaporated completely. He will have no financial assistance from the Republican Party whatsoever. And you have ghouls like Liz Cheney that even calls on him to resign. Liz freaking Cheney. Yikes. And the reason is, of course, because he says the quiet parts loud. And let's not make any mistake, right? Again, this is who Republican voters are. This is who Republican politicians are, right? The thing about King is that, again, he's been doing this for a very long time, been saying the same. This isn't a new evolution in Steve King. No, he's been saying the same thing for decades, but he got away with it all the time. Now we're actually putting this in the spotlight thanks to Donald Trump, and then thanks to his over the top racism and white nationalism. Now people are paying attention, and the Republican Party is desperately trying to shove it back in the ground because if they don't, they're going to continue to lose elections. And understand, right? Again, it's not because of the Republican Party is suddenly aghast at this, and outraged that one of their members might be somewhat racist. No. They relied on the Southern strategy of appealing to white racist voters in the South. Now, those were originally the Dixiecrats. They were members of the Democratic Party. But during the Civil Rights era, when Democrats started coming around to I should say, the Democratic Party being more racially inclusive and fighting for civil rights for African Americans, here you had the white Dixiecrats in the South that were like, no, we like our politicians racist. And so the Republicans said, okay, why don't you come join us? Because we're still racist. So, look, help us win elections and we'll be as racist as you want. And that was the deal. And it's been happening to this day. In fact, that was something that 2 former RNC chairs apologized for because they know their demographic is shrinking. America is becoming more tolerant and much more diverse. But make no mistake, Republicans have been successful electorally because of racism. Donald Trump, another great example. Donald Trump ran on building a wall between us and Mexico, calling Mexicans rapists and criminals. Not only that, but the hundreds of things that he said since then. And what happens? Well, some of the recent polls, have Donald Trump's favorability among Republicans around 78%. Before that, 90%. 90% of Republicans throughout most of his presidency have positive, favorable views of Donald Trump. They agree with him. They eat it up, and they vote religiously. And that's not an accident saying religiously, too, because a lot of them do vote on, basis of religion, like the evangelicals, who, again, support Trump at even higher rates than 90%. So, And look, Republican representatives that are already in power, they do manage to gerrymander and engage in voter suppression to make sure that they can continue to get a very shrinking minority of people to keep them in power. So let's not pretend that Steve King is some sort of weird aberration. Like, oh my God, this is so new. No, no, he was Donald Trump before Donald Trump. He reflects his voters and he reflects his party. His only crime, to them at least, is just being too transparent about it, being too open and getting caught. Okay. One more here. Bad news for anybody who actually believes in democracy. Now, a federal appeals court has just recently ruled that members of the Electoral College, that's basically the body that decides who's going to become president, uh, now these members who cast their votes for a president now don't have to go by who wins their state, but just by who they feel should be president. Now, this is a ruling that happened recently by the 10th Circuit, 10th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Colorado. So now, this ruling focused on a case of Michael Baca. Now, Baca is a Colorado Democrat, and he decided that he wasn't in favor of Hillary Clinton. Look, I can agree. I wasn't hugely in favor of Hillary Clinton. I still ended up holding my nose. I voted for her in order to avoid the disaster that is Donald Trump. If it were up to me and the millions of people who supported Bernie Sanders, he would have been the nominee. He would have crushed Donald Trump. But anyway, Baca had other ideas. It turns out that, yes, he didn't like Hillary Clinton. So instead, he wrote in and voted for, actually, Republican John Kasich. So, now when that happened, Colorado, the Secretary of State in Colorado, said, no, you can't do that. No, in Colorado, we vote for the people who actually win the state. And in that case, that was Hillary Clinton. And so he should respect his constituents and cast his vote for Hillary Clinton. He did not, so he got replaced. So now the court obviously disagrees with that. And in their majority opinion, they wrote this: the text of the Constitution makes clear that states do not have the constitutional authority to interfere with presidential electors who exercise their constitutional right to vote for president and vice president candidates of their choice. So this seems like a technical ruling to me, right? Oh, no, it's just the state interfering. You can't just go and replace that guy because you don't like the way he voted, even though his vote does not represent the will of the voters. So that's the problem here. Again, this isn't a case of, hey, man, look, I'm a private citizen. I'm voting in the election, and I'm voting for somebody that I like. I don't like Bernie, or I don't like Donald Trump. I don't like Hillary Clinton. I'm going to vote in John Kasich, or in my case, like, oh, I would want to vote for Bernie Sanders. Fine if you want to do that. Perfectly fine, right? It's not fine if you're a member of the Electoral College because, again, you have more weight under our system, right? Or if you're a delegate during a primary, by the way. That unfortunately has, like I said, more weight in the system that we have. And of course, that brings me to the problem in the system that we actually do have. Because, look, I feel like we should have more voter representation. I feel like we should have one person, one vote. The Electoral College is completely against that. That gives smaller states far more representation. And I know the argument against that is, yeah, but even though we have less people in our state, we should count more because we have less people. Again, I don't like that argument, right? It's kind of a ridiculous argument to me, as well as anybody who actually believes in more direct democracy. So now, one critic of this ruling is Lawrence Lessig. Now, Lawrence Lessig is a Harvard Law professor, and he's been doing a lot of great work against money in politics. And he actually founded the group that brought the case against Baca. Now, that was Equal Citizens, right? And he said it was the first time a federal appeals court had ruled on whether electors could be bound in how they vote. So now Lessig again, I believe he believes in democracy. And so what they're doing is like, hey, you can't actually have this happen. What Baca did is not good. We should have the Supreme Court to weigh in. And he said, quote, whatever your side you're on, whether you think it's a good or a bad idea for electors to have freedom, the question ought to be resolved before there is a constitutional crisis. So he's not wrong. And so, look, the big problem with the Electoral College, in my opinion, is that it exists. It's a leftover from when we had the slave states. I don't like the idea that there's an unelected group of people who decide who win the election. No, no, no. The voters should matter. The voters should matter far more. I mean, look, generally, members of the Electoral College would, for the most part, vote for whoever took the popular vote in most of the states, right? But we have had situations where that did not happen. In fact, you've had at least 2 elections that I remember, that I know of, possibly more, where members of the Electoral College looked at the popular vote and said, yeah, no, no, we're going to go and still allow this president or this person to become president, even though the majority of Americans did not vote for them. That's a big, big problem in my, big problem in my opinion, right? It's not democracy. And look, I know I'm going to get comments like, well, we're not a democracy, we're a representative republic. Well, even so, if the member of the Electoral College votes against the will of the people in the state, the majority that said vote for X candidate, then is that even representative at all? And why should they have even more power to not be representative of the will of the voters? And that's exactly what this does. This gives more power to the elector to say, I'm just going to go with my gut. I'm going to go with how I feel. And I don't like this candidate, and I'm going to vote for someone else despite my state actually voting for this candidate. So that's the problem. And look, let me give you a couple of examples, right? Let's go with Bernie Sanders, right? So what if Bernie Sanders wins Michigan? And the electors say, and this is a general election, by the way, Bernie Sanders wins, he becomes the nominee for the Democratic Party, and then he goes up against Donald Trump. And the majority of Michigan voters say, okay, let's go with Bernie Sanders. But here you have electors in the state of Michigan saying, no, I'd rather have Donald Trump than Bernie Sanders, so I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. You don't think that would happen? This ruling opens the door for exactly that scenario. Or let's go with the reverse scenario. Say Donald Trump wins Michigan, right? And say, for example, maybe we have Elizabeth Warren, right? That's running against Donald Trump, and Donald Trump wins Michigan somehow. Or Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania again, right? So, here you have an elector in Pennsylvania saying, actually, no, you know what? I like Elizabeth Warren more, so I'm going to vote for her. And she ends up winning the election, especially if it's super close. That's a situation that could happen. So think about this, conservatives. Think about that. Would you rather have more of a democracy or these electors being able to do whatever the hell they want and basically usurping the will of the voter? Because that's the system that we're going to right now. That's the system that we have. Now, here's the thing. Again, bad ruling, undermining popular vote, right? And I think as a consequence, this ruling will have, and actually it will reduce the number of people who are voting. Why? Because the reaction will almost certainly be, hey, well, what's the point of voting then? If somebody's going to take my vote and basically throw it away and vote and cast their electoral ballot for someone else or use their electoral vote to support someone else that we didn't support, then what's the point of voting? Look, I get it, right? Now, don't do that. Don't say, no, I'm not going to vote, because there are states that are putting in safeguards that are saying that you do have to respect the wishes of your voters. And I think there's 20 something states that have signed on to that right now. And of course, like I said, Lawrence Lessig wants to take this to the Supreme Court. So we'd have to see how that shakes out. But nonetheless, this is, how they're trying to steal your vote. And why we need to push harder, instead of giving up, push harder to actually change the system to make it more small d democratic. Okay. All right. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for everyone on the nation. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Please consider supporting us on patreon.com/TYT Nation too if you want to help the channel continue to grow. Subscribe, obviously. And if you subscribe, ring the bell so that you continue to get notifications whenever we go live or whenever we put up a clip. So thank you guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See you guys tomorrow.